Hey, this is Courtney Starhart with Urban Shaman, where we brew modern magic for health and happiness. So, this is the second video in a series about kombucha, and this one is going to deal with why you should drink kombucha. Wow, there are so many reasons why kombucha is great for a person, and when people come to me wanting to make their lives better, happier, and healthier, then I recommend kombucha right away. It's like step one in making your life a better place. As an alternative, holistic type of person, trained as a medicine person and looking at herbalism and health, I look at why disease happens, and I've always wondered, ever since I was a kid. So I have a friend who was working on some research at UNM and basically narrowed down one thing, cancer, to three main things, okay? Cancer is really prevalent, so I'm talking about that first because everyone's aware of what that is. But we're not really aware of what it comes from. So apparently it comes from poor nutrition and a lack of certain things that are essential for your body. Two, toxicity. So when your body becomes overburdened by environmental toxins, these can include pesticides, petrochemicals, and also metals that we pick up. I'm sure there's a host of other things like air pollutants and whatnot, but those are the ones that I try to deal with. It turns out that only 10% of cancer is actually genetic. So that means that most of the cancer that our friends and relations are dying from could have been helped. So looking at this as a traditional medicine person, you look at trying to help prevent things rather than curing it after it's already happened. So the better you can get to the root of things, basically, the less work you have to do in a tribe. And I'm kind of joking about that, but my teacher was a very traditional person and thought in that way in terms of, if you were really in a tribal setting and you had a community to tend to and it was your responsibility, what would be the quickest way that you could help them to stay healthy? And it turns out that kombucha is one of those things. So if cancer, for example, comes from lack of nutrition and basic building blocks for what your body needs, as well as toxicity, how do we essentially get at that? Okay, kombucha is step one. Kombucha is really fun because you can brew it at home, and that's really nice. You can have friends over and have little kombucha samplers in your garden, or just enjoy tasting people's different versions of kombucha. So that's fun. It's a very social kind of thing, and the French called it friendship tea, latte de la charité. Partially because it reproduces so quickly that you have to find friends to give this starter out to, and also because it's fun to get together and drink it. It doesn't really have any alcohol, very, very little, unless you add fructose, at which point it will start to ferment. So you might catch a little buzz off of it, but it's nothing like beer or even like cider. It's got a very low alcohol content, even when you do ferment it. But this right here is plain old kombucha. I add the fruit juice to it after I've already brewed it so that it's not getting alcohol. Okay, so now you've got a drink that's a social drink, okay, that's got no alcohol. It's good for you. It's local. You can brew it yourself for very little money, okay? So that's a really good start. Instead of having a beer, instead of having, whatever, a cocktail. And not to say that you can't have one or two, but to say that human beings are social creatures. We like to stand around and have a beverage and kind of socialize. I think it must be in our biology because we evolved probably sipping teas and things like that, eating together and talking and being together. So it satisfies a nutritional need, it satisfies a social need, and it's really light on the earth. So those are some great things right away. Of course, it's also amusing. It's almost like having a pet. But getting down to the more serious business of disease and how kombucha potentially could be helping to save you from getting sick, bad sick, like dying sick, there's a whole list of things that it does that takes care of those two bullet points about cancer: poor nutrition and toxicity. Okay, so let's talk about that. If only 10% of cancer actually comes from a genetic problem that may be unresolvable, right? Unavoidable. Only 10% of cancer is unavoidable, according to this study that I have just read. Okay? I'll give you a reference to it in the notes here so that you know that I'm not making this up. Looking at what kombucha does in terms of that, one of the things that it does is it chelates. It is said to chelate heavy metals and aluminums. So those are a big part of the toxins that we deal with. When we're cooking in metal pots, when we're getting things out of cans, or any types of metals that we touch on a day-to-day basis, we're picking up the metals, okay? And what those metals do is eventually cause disease. Alzheimer's has been seen to be connected to that type of thing, and I'm sure that a host of other things are. So there we go. There's one way that it's going to help you stay away from the big C, okay? It also actually helps your blood pH to balance, okay? There are lots of studies that are looking at cancer in terms of rust and rot, all right? When your blood pH gets too acidic, it's a trigger or a catalyst for your body to start breaking itself down. When things get to a certain pH, say with a piece of fruit, it starts to rot. This is nature's way of decomposing things. But I should rather not like to start decomposing internally as I'm still enjoying my life, right? So kombucha actually helps your body to stay at the right pH, okay, which is a more alkaline one, so that you don't start to rot. That's always good. Okay, what's next? It has tons of B vitamins, so it's calming and soothing. When you drink kombucha, you're going to notice your body getting some things that it probably hasn't gotten in a really long time, or maybe not enough of, one way or the other. So you're going to be also getting B vitamins, calming and soothing, okay? You're going to be getting readily available proteins from the bacteria and yeast. These are just tiny little organisms, right? And they don't have thick walls, and they don't have muscle fiber that your body has to break down, like when you eat meats, or like when you eat plants. If you're eating raw vegetables, those are thick walls that your body has to break down, and it either has to be cooked or prepared in a special way so that your body can digest it and absorb its proteins, because the proteins are on the inside of the cell walls. So what we have going on here with kombucha is a situation where you can drink it and your body is able to access those proteins really, really quickly, because it's just a thin little cell membrane on these bacteria and yeast. So there's tons of readily available proteins. Check. All right, the next thing, those beneficial bacteria and yeast that you have going on in kombucha actually combat the bad yeast and the bad bacteria. Kombucha is a wonderful thing to fight against things like E. coli, or to fight against, the yeast infections that people get in their gut and in their other organs. So it really helps to balance, because it has a kind of yeast and a kind of bacteria that actually fights off that other stuff. This SCOBY, or this symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, is very aggressive. So in all of the years that I've been brewing it, I've never gotten any type of problems in here, because even if things do fall into there, which obviously with a lid on, you don't get too many of them, but should anything get in there, the SCOBY is going to fight it off vigorously. And it does the same thing for you in your gut. It fights off the things that are bad for you. Okay? So there is also one last thing, building blocks of life. There's a ton of amino acids that are produced by this thing right here. That SCOBY, it looks like cartilage, and it kind of is like cartilage. So, basic building blocks of life. So here's basically your list of reasons why kombucha is great for you. It's going to keep your pH balanced, it's going to chelate, it's going to give you basic building blocks, B vitamins, proteins, and all kinds of wonderful stuff for your gut. All right, so if you want to stay happy and healthy and do it easily and do it light on the planet, kombucha is your new best friend. Stay tuned in the next video for how to brew.